probably didn't expect this. The power that defined Deku's entire journey, one for all, is gone. Not stolen, not destroyed. He chose to erase it. And that choice? It changes the meaning of everything. From the final war's hidden clues to the last scene of the story, this video unpacks why Deku had to give up one for all, and how it makes My Hero Academia's ending one of the boldest in anime history. Spoilers ahead. So what actually happened in the finale? The finale of My Hero Academia begins with All Might and All for One already locked in battle, and All Might was getting cooked. His armor was damaged and barely functional. It was clear he was running out of options. This was the man who once carried society on his shoulders, and now he could barely carry himself. Across from him stood All for One, who was surprisingly getting younger as the fight continued. And All for One literally mocked him, saying he could defeat him with minimal effort, which he could by the looks of it. And that's why All Might decided to do something more important, to age him and slow him down. But why age him more? Because the more All for One uses his quirks or gets damaged, he ages, and his body becomes fragile like a child. Elsewhere, we saw the divide and conquer plan had failed, and all 32 heroes involved in those battles had been defeated. And Yuga Aoyama, who was fighting against Kaneda, had become the only hope for the other heroes. Kaneda reminds Yuga of his past, calling him a traitor and trying to break his spirit. But Yuga remembers the one person always believed in him, Deku. Holding on to that faith, Nejira suddenly appeared. Together they overwhelmed Kaneda and finally defeated him. Back at the main battlefield, All Might and All for One continued their fight. And all around the world, people watched as their favorite hero was being destroyed on national television. Then something strange happened. All for One began to glow. Just as he was about to deliver the final blow, he suddenly stopped moving. Someone had arrived. Stain, a man who once believed only true heroes deserved to exist. We all thought this dude had disappeared, but he came all the way out here sniffing All Might's blood to reach him. For a moment it seemed like the fight might shift, but All for One revealed that he had been prepared. He had altered his blood composition in advance, easily countering Stain's quirk and knocking him away, sending him crashing through multiple buildings. When All for One tries to steal Stain's quirk, blood curdled. All Might rushed in, and at the moment Hercules shields them, but everything was destroyed. All Might was barely alive and Stain's quirk is gone. All for One looks like he was just getting started. In other parts of the war, Shoto succeeded in suppressing Dabi's heat, while other heroes completed their missions. Meanwhile, Deku continued his battle with Shigaraki, and All for One decided to give Shigaraki a synthetic copy of his quirk. But Shigaraki's consciousness had grown stronger than All for One, but he rejected it, because Shigaraki knows something important. So All for One chose to go to Shigaraki himself, while giving All Might a ride. As All Might began to lose hope, memories surfaced. Moments from the past, from Deku, from the people he had inspired. So All Might tried one final trick, but All for One saw through it and refused to let him die as a hero. And here's the irony. The last ability he used against All Might was the very first quirk he had ever stolen. The military attempted to intervene, but All for One wiped them out effortlessly like flies. The entire world watched as All Might was about to be killed. And then the most unexpected person woke up. Bakugo. Bakugo launched himself toward the battlefield, and with the help of Deku's gear shift, he reached All Might. Everyone thinks he wouldn't make it, but then All for One's hands were blown off, and All Might was saved. They landed on a nearby building, and Bakugo immediately insulted All Might, calling him an old man. But how was Bakugo alive? It was revealed that Edgeshot had kept Bakugo alive, sacrificing himself to repair Bakugo's body. Bakugo takes All Might's last piece of armor and re-entered the fight. He did so as a great explosion. Murder God Dynamite. One of the worst names I've heard in anime, by the way. All for One decided to stop wasting time and rush towards Shigaraki, but Gakuro intercepted him, blasting his face apart. As the battle continued and All for One kept trying to reach Shigaraki, Bakugo discovered a new use of his quirk, a secondary explosion technique. For the first time, we saw his mother watching proudly. Bakugo detonated again, laughing through the pain. Then, the story shifted. We finally saw All for One's past. All for One was a son of a prostitute, and shockingly, he had a twin brother. They somehow survived, but the world had started to witness meta children. We got to know that All for One stole her mom's quirk when he uses it to kill a bunch of rescuers, and the very last quirk used against All Might. 3 years later, All for One finally chose to follow a dream. The dream of creating a world that existed solely for his sake. Later, we found out his brother had run away, and All for One called him Yoichi. He even forced one of his stolen quirks on his brother, but Yoichi couldn't accept it and never used at all. Yoichi believed his brother's powers were a blessing, and he had hoped for better. After the flashbacks ended, All For One decided to end the fight with Bakugo in a single move. But it turns out Bakugo was pretty clever and somehow outbombed All For One. Finally, when the smoke started to dissipate, All For One emerged out from the smoke, crawling with size and face of a baby, and Bakugo didn't hesitate to end it. For the first time, there was good news, but on the other side, it was Deku and Shigaraki still battling. The battle continues and Shigaraki steals the ability of the fourth user, Deku using his chains to keep the distance while Shigaraki kept his barrage of attacks. Midoriya comes up with new attacks mid-fight, trying to keep up with Shigaraki, but finally the quirk's limits start to hit, and Deku starts having breathing problems. Another round of flashbacks starts, and finally it looks like Deku is about to lose as he crashed to the ground. Then the most unexpected twist came. The second user suggested something unthinkable: to let go of One For All. But why would anyone do that? Turn out inside Shigaraki there was a lump which represented rage and his frustration and all of his memories. But all of it had been pulled into one core. Now his willpower is just rock-solid hatred. But there was a crack. A mental wound buried deep within his consciousness. By absorbing All For One, Shigaraki had become overwhelmingly powerful, and Deku was no longer a match for him in a direct fight. So the only way forward was to attack from the inside. Transferring One For All will give them the chance to go after that wound, allowing them to strike directly at his consciousness. But to hit that vulnerable point, the transfer had to be precise, done in the right amount. So they began transferring the quirk, one user at a time. Slowly, piece by piece, Deku transferred his powers into Shigaraki. Slowly, piece by piece, he was hitting the lump, and it started to crack. Shigaraki finally rejected it, but the damage was already done. Midoriya finally entered Shigaraki's consciousness, and it was there that Shigaraki's past was fully revealed. The grandmother who had abandoned his father turned out to be none other than Nana Shimura. Within that consciousness, Shigaraki activated his quirk for the first time. But when Midoriya tried to save him, All For One appeared out of nowhere and consumed him. Then the most shocking truth came out. Everything had been planned from the very beginning by All For One. He had taken away Shigaraki's original quirk and given him the decay quirk without regeneration. Every loss Shigaraki suffered, everything he destroyed, and everything he became was ultimately All For One's ultimate plan. At last, when both emerged from their consciousness, All For One emerged using Shigaraki's body, and Deku lost both his arms. Just when all hope seemed lost, Deku's classmates finally arrived, along with Eraserhead. With the help of Ares' horn, Deku's arms were restored through Rewind. Everyone joined the fight, and the Divide and Conquer Phase 3 began. Quirk abilities exploded everywhere, and even with all of them fighting together, it felt like nothing was affecting him at all. Everyone helped Midoriya reach One For All, and when he finally reached him, Midoriya released everything he had left of One For All. All For One got hit so hard, he started loving his brother, but in his consciousness, his brother finally left him. The combined consciousness of the stolen users consumed All For One, and in the end, both Shigaraki and All For One disappeared. But why couldn't Shigaraki be saved? Shigaraki was never evil by choice. From the moment he was a child, every part of his life was shaped by manipulation, by loss, and neglect, all carefully engineered by All For One. By the time Deku reached him, there was nothing left to fix. Only pain that had turned into hatred. Saving Shigaraki didn't mean letting him live. It meant freeing him from the control that defined his entire existence. In the end, Deku didn't fail to save him. He succeeded in ending his suffering, making him a human. So why did All For One have to lose this way? All For One didn't lose in a grand or heroic way, and that was intentional. He spent his entire life chasing control over people, over quirks, over history itself. He wanted to be remembered as the ultimate villain, the one who wanted people to exist only to serve him. But instead, he was reduced to something small and powerless. Stripped of everything he stole from others. No followers, no legacy, no one left to remember him. And in the end, All For One didn't just lose the war, he lost his relevance. After the war finally ended, the news slowly spread across the world. The impossible had happened. All For One was gone, but victory came at a cost. Bakugo was alive, yet forever changed, having lost a hand in the final battle. Midoriya and All Might lay in hospital beds beside each other. Midoriya and All Might ended their journeys the same way they had begun side by side, without a quirk, both had started as powerless boys who just wanted to save people. They both had carried One for All when the world needed a symbol, and they both had eventually let it go. All Might passed the torch to save the present. Deku gave it up to save the future. Lying in those hospital beds together, the cycle was complete. And then we saw Midoriya was back to his original state, quirkless. The power that had once defined him was gone, but the smile on his face remained. Time moved forward, and the world began to heal. When we saw them again, they were adults, reunited, and standing together not as students, but as equals who had survived the same war. Midoriya chose a different path. He became a teacher. Bakugo rose through the ranks, becoming one of the top heroes of the new era. Still loud and aggressive, but now driven by responsibility instead of rage. Shoto Todoroki became a calm, reliable hero, someone the public trusted, not for his name, but for his actions. No longer known as Endeavor's son. And after more than 100 episodes, Midoriya and Uraraka finally confessed their mutual feelings. Others found their own futures as well. Some remained heroes, some chose quieter lives. Others dedicated themselves to rebuilding what had been lost. And in the end, the story made one thing clear. The greatest heroes, the ones remembered as number one, were all, in their own way, quirkless. Not because they lacked power, but because power was never what made them heroes. My Hero Academia was always trying to say this. A real hero isn't defined by their quirk. They're defined by their heart. Few anime commit to their themes all the way to the end, and My Hero Academia is one of them. Do you think Deku's ending was perfect, or did you want more? Drop your thoughts below. And YouTube's already lined up another video for you on your screen. You're gonna enjoy it. Go check it out now.